Bach is an American actress. Photo 1977. Actress Becky LeBeau 1986. April 7, 1922. Washington, D.C. Photographers shooting cherry blossoms at Tidal Basin. July 1942. U.S. Naval Academy, Annapolis, Maryland. Basketball player. May 1942. Greenbelt, Maryland. Federal Housing Project. Shopping in the cooperative grocery store. Washington, D.C., circa 1923. Herbert Hoover Jr. and radio set. Son of the future president and a noted ham. Washington, D.C., circa 1923. Herbert Hoover Jr. radio set. Detroit, circa 1907. Horticultural building, Belle Isle Park. Check out their latest vine. March 1921. City Gardens Club of New York exhibit at the International Flower Show, Grand Central Palace. New Zealand, circa 1920. Young men on motorcycles, probably Wanganui region. Ready to run some errands, and you'd better not get in the way, or else they might be late. Washington, D.C., 1922. Lee Tire Company test. The tire to get if you plan on driving over dozens of nails simultaneously. June 26, 1956. Leadcoat Products Company, Vernon Boulevard, Astoria, Long Island. Office Accounting Department. Corridon M. Johnson Company client. April 1942. South Hill Street, Los Angeles. Now playing at the Warner, the male animal. Washington, circa 1922. Coin-operated radio outside barbershop. Washington, D.C., circa 1922. Coin-operated radio and barbershop. April 1955. Duke Ellington and band members playing baseball in front of their segregated motel while touring in Florida. May 1913. Randleman, North Carolina. Charlie Humble. Said he was 10 years old. Has a regular job. Been helping his sister for some months in the Deep River Mills. Mother and sister work. Father deserted. July 1942. Wrestling at U.S. Naval Academy. June 1943. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Miss Frances Heisler, a garage attendant at one of the Atlantic Refining Company garages. She was formerly a clerk in the payroll department of Curtis Publishing. January 20th, 1921. Washington, D.C. American Forestry Association, Birdhouse Contest. Arlington County, Virginia, circa 1941. National Airport. Plane in front of passenger terminal and control tower. November 13, 1911. New York streets during garbage strike. Saginaw, Michigan, circa 1908. Hoyt Library. Circa 1906. The bathing beach at Magnolia, Massachusetts. September 1952. St. Louis Browns pitcher Satchel Paige. (1924) Washington, D.C. In recognition of his having conducted the most successful radio exhibition in the U.S., Alfred Stern, director of Washington's first radio exposition, was presented with this elaborate loop antenna by Dr. J. Harris Rogers, famous inventor. June 1943. Turkey Pond, near Concord, New Hampshire. Women workers employed by a Department of Agriculture timber salvage sawmill. Ruth DeRoche, 18-year-old pit woman, resting her head on her lunch pail during the lunch hour. The enchanting Karen Brennan of the 1980s. June 1913. Child Labor Scholarship. Boy securing his weekly allowance from the New York Child Labor Committee that permits his presence in school. Spring 1961. My brother was just completing his first year teaching English at a Sacramento, California area high school and accompanied some of his students on a trip to Yosemite, where he snapped this Kodachrome slide. circa 1910. Whaleback barge entering White's Lock, Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. Circa 1943, another look at the Dime-Action deployment units. Somewhere in North Africa, with Carl Spaatz leading the group on the right. Washington, D.C., 1922. X-ray at Garfield Hospital. We'll have you patched up in no time, kiddo. November 16, 1935. New Orleans photographs 1123 Royal Street. Hi, Bob. January 1959. Boating on Florida's Suwannee River. Bud and Pat Boyett, with children Vic and Becky, vacationing on their boat near Paddlewheeler Belle of Suwannee. April 17, 1947. Armed troops form a roadblock at Texas City, Texas, as all persons, including workers, were barred from entering the area where new explosions were expected. Fire in huge oil storage tanks burns in background. March 26, 1923. Washington, D.C. Test car, Bureau of Standards. See above for details. Circa 1900. Recreation Dock, Amusement Pier, New York. Check your brakes. April 12, 1966. Sandy Koufax, pitcher for the Los Angeles Dodgers, in the locker room signing baseballs. June 1943. Pitcairn, Pennsylvania. Mrs. Bernice Stevens of Braddock, Pennsylvania, mother of one child, employed in the engine house of the Pennsylvania Railroad, earns 58 cents per hour. She is cleaning a locomotive with a high-pressure nozzle. Her husband is in the Army. 1920s. Unidentified women at Long Beach, New York. Two jazz-age sunbathers just in from West Egg. (1924). The latest in radio development, which has been perfected by Mr. H.P. O'Reilly of Washington, D.C., which seems to incorporate a telegraph one, the early wire recorder alluded to on the wall. May 1943. Palacios, Texas. Liquor store. The original wine box. (1903). Oriental Hotel and Boardwalk, Manhattan Beach, Brooklyn, New York. July 1942. U.S. Naval Academy, Annapolis, Maryland gymnast on the flying rings. December 1943. Washington, D.C. A lieutenant in the Army Air Transport Command calling the airport to check on flight conditions before checking out at the United Nations Service Center. January 1912. Tenement homework, New York, 309 West 146th Street. Mrs. DeLevo, and her 7-year-old daughter, Lorenza, embroidering ladies' waists in their dirty kitchen living room. Detroit circa 1902. Photochrome Company building side view. Echo Cliffs, Grand River Canyon, Colorado. Photochrome print published in 1914. Bonus photo for you, a beautiful retro woman. Pretty Becky LeBeau, 1988. Stunning model Maria Whitaker, 1989. Charming Gail McKenna in black bikini, 1988. (1953). Marilyn Monroe enacting a scene from the motion picture How to Marry a Millionaire. January 17, 1956. Raymond Loewy's Jaguar car. Number 8. Publicity photo from late 1950 for the Kaiser. Henry J. A small car, named after company chairman Henry J. Kaiser, that was a few years ahead of its time. Spring 1960. Efforts of John F. Kennedy's campaign team, including members of his family, in West Virginia during Kennedy's quest for the 1960 Democratic presidential nomination, includes Brother Bob at a drive-in in Bluefield. November 1942. Babies Hospital, New York. The welfare of this young patient, suffering from burns, is aided by having his bed placed near a window where he can watch the boats pass by. September 10, 1942, somewhere in Australia. American soldier at advanced Allied base with his pet kangaroo. November 1942. Babies Hospital, New York. Care of prematurely born babies is one of the most complicated procedures which must be learned by the student nurse. March 1943. New Orleans oil truck. Note the wings atop the tank. Circa 1943. Civilian defense in the United States. Blackout measures. New Zealand circa 1958. Men's underwear being modeled, photographed by Key Niven Company of Wellington. Fall 1942. War production drive. Anthracite rallies. Jeep headlights form V for victory at the night rally for Pennsylvania anthracite miners in Wilkes-Barre on September 29. Similar rallies were held in other anthracite cities from September 28 through October 1. October 1941. Main store. Fort Hunter, New York. Still on tap. Some of that new spring mobile gas. July 1909. Mrs. Bissey and family, Polish. Bottomley Farm, Rock Creek. They all work in the berry fields near Baltimore in summer and have worked at Biloxi, Mississippi, for 2 years. Washington, D.C., circa 1917. Hotel Harrington, 11th and ESDSNW. Circa 1907. Main Street, Rochester, New York. At left, the renowned Hotel Eggleston. Circa 1953. Actress Audrey Hepburn with Dining Companion in Mexico. December 1942. Mary Miller, operator of a router at the Boeing plant in Seattle, drills holes in a part for a new B-17F Flying Fortress bomber. Elson Chemist and Dutton Bookshop on Courtney Place, Wellington, between 1896 and 1897. New Jersey circa 1905. The Boardwalk, Asbury Park. Washington, D.C. Babies 1927. Today only, 2 for 1. It's getting so hot in here. Summer 1941. Detroit, Michigan. Girls playing cards and drinking Coca-Cola. September 1942. Tires need checking too? Shifting trends of employment in wartime America have opened up new jobs for women such as this young East Liverpool, Ohio, girl who has pioneered in 2 new fields since graduation from high school. July 1942. These high school boys constructed this trainer plane, and the young man holding the stick is operating it. Note the instruments and control board. This is one phase of the aviation course offered boys at the Wequahic High School in Newark, New Jersey. Washington, D.C., or vicinity circa 1917. Gash, Stull Company, Bright Shepherd job. (1949). The mid-century look is now the American look. Photographs show people who personify the American look. 19-year-old fashion model and Clem is shown at work and at leisure. Circa 1910. Bathing at the Old Club, St. Clair Flats, Michigan. Circa 1962. Dulles International Airport, Chantilly, Virginia, 1958-63. Eero Saarinen architect. Control tower interior. A 1970s hottie, no caption, photo shoot in an adorable outfit. Washington, D.C., 1924. Ford Motor Company Manhattan Laundry Trucks. November 1942. Salt Lake City, Utah. Training women to operate buses and taxicabs. Fall 1960. A Kodachrome by our old friend Arthur Rothstein, taken for the Look magazine assignment. Tailgate gourmets. Food for tailgate picnics displayed in the backs of station wagons. Circa 1905. Lower Genesee Street, Utica, New York. July 1939. Activity around Station Master's Shack. Streetcar Terminal, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. May 1942. Southington, Connecticut, amusement park, with a dress code. June 1943. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Miss Frances Heisler, last seen here, attendant at one of the Atlantic Refining Company garages. She was formerly a clerk in the payroll department of the Curtis Publishing Company. Circa 1940, somewhere on the high seas. Boxing match in progress on the deck of New Zealand troopship Dominion Monarch, carrying second echelon 4th reinforcements to the United Kingdom. Probably Empress of Russia seen sailing in the background. Jacqueline Bouvier Kennedy, 1957. Wife of the up-and-coming young senator from Massachusetts. Circa 1908. Allen House, Hartford, Connecticut. At the drug store, egg drinks and college ices. Maryland, circa 1948. Acme Market. Four Corners Woodmore Shopping Center, Colesville Pike and Old Bladensburg Road. Schreier Patterson Architects. New York, circa 1919. Homer. The Metropolitan Opera contralto Louise Homer, aunt of Samuel Barber, and two of her 6 children with the composer Sidney Homer. June 1943. Washington, D.C. Muriel Pear, a switching clerk at the Western Union Telegraph Office. Washington, D.C., circa 1922. Boy and Dog. Feel free to construct your own narrative. The Acme Supermarket at Wright. Silver Spring, Maryland, circa 1948. Acme Market. Four Corners Woodmore Shopping Center, Colesville Pike and Old Bladensburg Road. Schreier Patterson Architects. Circa 1900. St. Paul's Episcopal Cathedral, Buffalo, New York. With the Guarantee, Prudential, Building and a bicycle repair shop as neighbors. February 1942. Detroit, Michigan. Riot at the Sojourner Truth Homes, a new U.S. federal housing project, caused by white neighbors' attempt to prevent Negro tenants from moving in. Vans convoyed by police department moving Negroes' furniture. 1939, Mobile, Alabama. Collins Store, Royal Street near St. Louis Street. The Panama Cafe looks like our kind of place. Note the Dr. Pepper truck in the alley. September 12, 1953. Newport, Rhode Island. Kennedy wedding, Jacqueline Kennedy throwing the bouquet. November 1913. Fort Worth, Texas. Some results of messenger and newsboy work. For 9 years this 16-year-old boy has been newsboy and messenger for drug stores and telegraph companies. November 1942. Nurses in training. Babies Hospital, New York. A graduate nurse, Wright, watches student Susan Petty prepare a hypodermic for a patient. Strict adherence to doctor's orders is something every probationer must learn. April 12, 1929. King Tut, President Hoover's big German police dog, now makes the rounds of the sentry boxes in the White House grounds through the night. He is shown with W.S. Newton of the White House Police. The Hudson River circa 1908. Steamer landings, Poughkeepsie, New York. Circa 1921 in New York, the British pianist and conductor Ethel Legінська, who achieved a dubious renown for skipping out on her concert performances, including a memorable non-appearance at Carnegie Hall. November 22, 1963. Overview of crowds of people waving as President John F. Kennedy and his wife sit in back of limousine during procession through downtown Dallas, Texas. Texas Governor John Connally and his wife ride in the limousine's jump seats. Bonus photo for you, a beautiful retro woman. Serena Grandi is an Italian actress and sex symbol of the 1980s and 1990s. Photo 1983. And here we go. Stunning model Samantha Fox, 1989. Photo from the 80s aerobics series, The Girl Without a Caption. Summer 1938. Daughter of Virgil Thaxton, farmer near Mechanicsburg, Ohio. February 1922. Woman on sled being pulled by biplane in snow, with Washington Monument in background. January 28, 1922. Snow, Washington, D.C. A frosty Ford Model T during the blizzard of 1922. New York, February 1952. Your Show of Shows comedian Sid Caesar and Imogene Coca doing a skit about a couple watching the Continental Dot. January 1937. Migrant agricultural workers. Family from New Mexico, camped near the packing house at Deerfield, Florida. Note the box labeled Yakima apples, which has been carried all the way from the apple orchards of Washington. June 1943. Washington, D.C. pasting up a telegram at the Western Union Telegraph Office. Doris and Dorothy Bell send and receive telegrams from the Baltimore Circuit. New York circa 1910. Broadway and Hotel Victoria. April 1952. Actress Audrey Hepburn experimenting with various hairstyles, wigs, and makeup for film Roman Holiday. Circa 1920s. Men building sand castle and two unidentified women. Long Beach, New York. March 1943. Acomita, New Mexico. Brakeman Ari Capsi repacking a journal box of a special car as the train on the Atchison, Topeka Santa Fe Railroad between Belen and Gallup, New Mexico, waits on a siding. June 24, 1938. Shirley sees her old friend the President. Shirley Temple leaving the White House today after a very important conference with the President. Shirley told Mr. Roosevelt about losing a tooth last night, and he told her about Sis Di and Buzzy losing their teeth. July 1920. Washington, D.C. Dr. H.B. Bradford. Professor Harry Bradford. Naturalist and animal artist. According to the Washington Post, was also, in 1910, President of the Anti-Vaccination Society of the District of Columbia. 1904. Main Street, Dayton, Ohio, home of the Tooth Tower. January 19, 1951. Common accidents in the home? A sentiment open to a number of interpretations. December 1941. Washington, D.C. Girls in Hot Shops Restaurant. July 1937. Georgia Road sign. Photo by Dorothea Lange, who seems to have appreciated quirky signs. Circa 1910. Chester Cathedral, England. Major construction 11th to 15th century. February 1911. Bayou La Battery, Alabama. Little Julie attending the baby at home. All the older ones are at the factory. She shucks oysters also. Alabama Canning Company. March 1943. Conductor George E. Burton having lunch in the caboose on the Atchison, Topeka Santa Fe between Chicago and Chillicothe. January 29, 1922. Washington, D.C. Knickerbocker after collapse. Aftermath of the Knickerbocker Theater disaster, in which the snow-laden roof of Harry Crandall's cinema at Columbia Road and 18th Street caved in, killing 98 moviegoers. 1951. Santa Barbara, California. Lana Turner by pool at the Coral Casino. September 1942. Manpower. Americans All. Husky, bright-eyed Joe Gore Jr. is a young American of Polish descent who is determined that Hitler shall be driven from Poland and kept from America's shores. Canal Street in New Orleans circa 1910. Large building is the Maison Blanche department store. October 1942. High School Victory Corps. The Fireman's Carry. Method of carrying a wounded comrade is shown here by boys in the commando course of the physical education program at Flushing High School, Queens, New York. May 1936, somewhere in Indiana. Auto transport at gas station. Charming Jacqueline Sheen 1985. July 31st, 1922. Laurel, Maryland. Two BO freights wrecked in head-on crash at Laurel Switch. December 1942. Armed guard at a copper smelter of the Phelps Dodge Mining Company at Morenci, Arizona. This plant is supplying great quantities of the copper so vital in our war effort. Circa 1910. Beach Street, Manchester, New Hampshire. Washington, D.C., 1920. Potomac Sales Company front. Adding to the scant contemporary documentation of the Dixie Flyer, one of many assembled cars from the early years of motoring. July 1957. Actor James Arness filming on location for the television series Gunsmoke. January 1943. New York. 16-year-old boy who is in the Naval Reserve on Mulberry Street. Hans Coliseum, interior. A flag-bedecked footwear sale held by the Hans chain of shoe stores at Washington, D.C. Center Market in July 1920. Circa 1890s 1900. Beach and Ladies Bathing Place, Margate, England. Circa 1910. RR Station at Manchester, New Hampshire. Washington, D.C., 1921. Potomac Sales Company, Rec. Just up the alley from P. McEwen, Horse Shore. March 1943. View from caboose on the Atchison, Topeka Santa Fe Railroad between Belen and Gallup, New Mexico. January 1959. Majority of photographs concern Dr. John O. Brown, Negro ophthalmologist, and his family, and depicts various forms of racial segregation and integration in Miami. May 1943. Clinton, Iowa. Women wipers of the Chicago Northwestern Railroad going out to work on an engine at the roundhouse. (1913) Annapolis, Maryland. U.S. Naval Academy football team. (1913) Annapolis, Maryland. U.S. Naval Academy football team. F Street Northwest in Washington, D.C., circa 1906. New York, circa 1931. R.H. Macy Company. Building Broadway 34th Street. The original big box retailer. Washington, D.C., circa 1925. Federal Clothing Store, 621 7th Street Northwest. March 1936. Low-cost housing. St. Louis, Missouri. Cigars and Coke not included. Circa 1910. Coal barges at confluence of Allegheny and Monongahela rivers at Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. January 1922. Washington, D.C. Man in three-wheeled vehicle. Bonus photo for you, a beautiful retro woman. Beautiful Samantha Strong 1988. Photo shoot in beautiful lingerie. Pretty English model Samantha Fox 1989. Lonnie Anderson is an American actress. Photo 1964. May 1921. Washington, D.C. Professor Charles Seeger, a composer, is a brother of Alan Seeger, the war poet. His wife is a distinguished violinist. April 1865. Richmond, Virginia. Libby Prison. The infamous Confederate jail. June 17, 1922. Washington Advertising Club bathing costume contest at Tidal Basin. September 1952. Rolling Homes. Kodachrome from photos by Charlotte Brooks and Bob Lerner for the Look magazine assignment. Trailer story. Cincinnati circa 1912. Main Street from Fountain Square, with a nice view of the Blymeyer building. Circa 1910. Lunch hour on the docks, Jacksonville, Florida. May 1955. Actor Fess Parker on a 22-city promotional tour as Davy Crockett. Includes public appearances at department stores. Circa 1920. Unidentified buildings, possibly movie set, associated with famous players Lasky. September 1942. New York. 3rd Avenue elevated railway station in the 70s at 8:30 a.m. America's favorite at the Guess It scales. May 23, 1921. Washington, D.C. Professor Charles Lewis Seeger and family. Charles Seeger, wife Constance Edson Seeger, and their 2-year-old son Pete, of future folk fame. Wellington, New Zealand, 1890. Post and Telegraph Department football team with men in rugby football kit. Postmaster William Copeland seated behind man with ball. (1914). 3 kittens in night clothes gathered around candlestick. April-May 1925. Washington, D.C. No caption. If you stare at this long enough, you really don't need a caption. Caption, caption. New York, 1918. Louison Building, 119 West 40th Street. Manic Frank Architects. Charleston, South Carolina, circa 1920. Street scene with horse and wagon. (1898). USS Freelance officers and crew. This patrol vessel, a converted steam yacht, was loaned to the Navy for service in the Spanish-American War. Palm Beach in 1902. Royal Poinciana Hotel and Trance. January 1943. New M4 tanks, which will soon be hurling their might against the Axis, in the Schenectady, New York, plant of the American Locomotive Company. November 1910. Pell City, Alabama. Doffers in Pell City Cotton Mill. Superintendent of mill is also mayor of Pell City. (1917) District of Columbia traffic stop-go signs. From the birthplace of that musical genre, perhaps the earliest visual representation of go-go. Circa 1905. South Salina Street, Syracuse, New York. Meet you in an hour at the Credit Parlors. March 1966. Actors Adam West and Burt Ward on the set of the movie Batman. September 3, 1920. Washington, D.C. Wapsie ho hum. We leave it to our resourceful commenters to fill in the blanks. September 3, 1920. Washington, D.C. Wapsie ho hum. We leave it to our resourceful commenters to fill in the blanks. October 1957. The Lemon family of Little Rock, Arkansas, father Fred, mother Edith, daughters Virginia and Rosemary, and son Gary at home, in front of State Capitol building, on streets of Little Rock. Daisy, a fictional character, played by Catherine Bach, from the 1980 American television series The Dukes of Hazzard. New Orleans circa 1923. View of a street and roofs. Also an ice wagon whose horse is wearing a hat. Bonus points if you can identify the street. March 1936. Washington, D.C. No caption, man with stop sign. Our second look in as many days at traffic sign history. June 1943. Gloucester, Massachusetts. Mr. and Mrs. Joseph Lopez. They have 2 boys in the armed forces, 6 children altogether. He is a fish skinner in the Gorton Pew fishery. Washington, D.C., 1925. No caption, man with highway signs. Circa 1905. Bath House, Nantasket Beach, Massachusetts. Note the rules and regulations for automobiles, etc. posted at left. August 1953. Jane Russell and Mary McCarty on the set of the film The French Line. August 1963. group portrait of several of the organizers of the March on Washington, among them Matthew Ahman, Rabbi Joachim Prinz, John Lewis, the Reverend Eugene Carson Blake, Whitney Young, A. Philip Randolph, the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., and Roy Wilkins. July 1942. Training high school boys to identify planes. There's no question about these young people's ability to recognize airplanes by their silhouettes. They're learning this and other essential facts of aviation at Wequahic High School, Newark, New Jersey. In 1955, my father visited San Francisco. This picture shows what the Cliff House looked like at that time. April 1968. Star Trek actor Leonard Nimoy in recording studio. Feelin' groovy. Summer 1938. Street scene, New York. With your choice of refreshment, shiny shoes and dancing on the water. January 1943. Chicago, Illinois. Union Station train concourse. January 1943. Chicago, Illinois. Union Station train concourse. March 1957. Women on board destroyer USS Maddox posing with sailors, modeling clothing with a nautical influence. Clearing away the debris, California Street, San Francisco. Aftermath of the earthquake and fire of April 18, 1906. (1940s). Arlington County, Virginia. War Department. Pentagon aerial view. December 1942. Switch lists coming in by teletype to the hump office at a Chicago Northwestern Railroad yard, Chicago. Washington, D.C., circa 1925. Federal Clothing Store, 621 7th Street Northwest. Circa 1904. Commonwealth Avenue, Boston. An ultra-detailed view of bustling Beantown. This photo is from my father's trip to Northern California in approximately 1950. I am hoping that someone who knows cars can come up a more precise date for the picture by noting the date of manufacture of the newest car shown here. New Orleans circa 1923. Upper stories of buildings with wrought iron balconies. Bonus photo for you, a beautiful retro woman. Charming Karen Brenna in red lace lingerie. Here we go. Pretty Heather Thomas, 1978. Cute model Maria Whitaker, 1989. June 1942. Washington, D.C. U.S. Office of Defense Transportation System of Port Control and its Traffic Channel Control. Bourbon Street and Ursulines Avenue circa 1924. New Orleans organ grinder. Washington, D.C., circa 1940. Ernest Kendall, teacher of U.S. Capitol Pages. Circa 1904. Ridgewood Avenue, Daytona, Florida, and the Surrey with the fringe on top. November 1909. A group of workers in Jonas Glass Works, Minnetonka, New Jersey. These are typical of conditions in southern New Jersey, although one finds, occasionally, a few younger workers. (1925) Washington, D.C. Broadcasting equipment. Adjusting the modulator tube filament rheostat. May 3, 1955. Family picnicking and barbecuing outdoors. (1959). American Bandstand MC Dick Clark with teenagers on the set of the show. January 1st, 1943. New York. Blowing horns on Bleecker Street on New Year's Day. San Francisco views, 1927. On Pine Street, looking east at the 32-story Russ Building. (1917) City Market, Washington, D.C. Our third glimpse of this produce market. Manhattan circa 1905. City Hall and Park, New York. New Zealand circa 1938. Cadillac 353 V8 service car operated by Rotorua Motors. Spring 1942. Detroit, Michigan. Girls coming out of the Highland Park Chrysler plant. Marilyn Monroe in 1953 in Banff, Alberta, visiting Canada to film River of No Return. Circa 1963. Milwaukee Art Museum, War Memorial Center, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 1952-57. Eero Saarinen architect. July 1940. Street scene at the Fiesta in Santa Fe, New Mexico. January 20th, 1921. Washington, D.C. American Forestry Association, Birdhouse Contest. Circa 1863. Union officer at Point Lookout, Tennessee, with cavalry saber. (1935) Washington, D.C. Alley dwelling. The clutter of filth, debris, and tin cans all have highly utilitarian purposes. Whatever that means. Many of the houses are without gas, water, or electric connections. October 1957. Assembly line with 1958 Chevrolets. Circa 1929. Unidentified women, possibly Elizabeth Duncan dancers. November 30th, 1920. Washington, D.C. Charles M. Schwab of the Colorama Apartments probably has the largest collection of stamps in the East. This is a pile of approximately 2 million. Florida circa 1905. Palm Beach Hotel, offering various modes of transport, including chairs that rock and ones that roll. October 1957. Taillight of 1958 Chevrolet. One of the lower-end Chevys, which had duplex taillights, as opposed to the triple light tail plus backup arrangement on the deluxe models. Catherine Bach, American actress, 1978. January 1943. Freight train operations on the Chicago Northwestern Railroad between Chicago and Clinton, Iowa. At the end of the trip, Conductor John Wolfsmith waits at the little railroad station for a suburban train. April 1955. Art Carney, Jackie Gleason, Audrey Meadows, and Joyce Randolph performing skit on television sound stage for the Honeymooners. Circa 1915. Mailman and truck. Location unknown. Collection time 6:15 a.m. to noon. Circa 1915. Location unknown. Mailman motorcycle. And not just any motorbike but a flying Merkel, with what looks like an acetylene gas headlamp. Oh, and spitting prohibited by law, except into cuspidors. September 1942. Washington, D.C. conversion of the Shoreham Hotel furnace from oil to coal burning system. April 1957. Entertainer Lawrence Welk playing accordion with the Lennon sisters. Or, as he would introduce them, the lovely little Lennon sisters. Florida circa 1910. St. George Street, St. Augustine, where merchants include purveyors of the Ingersoll dollar watch. September 15, 1961. Helena Rubinstein, 655 Fifth Avenue, New York. Class in session. Don Campbell and my father, Jack Shepard, went on a work-related trip to Sacramento in approximately 1950. They both worked as electrical engineers for the Light and Water Department in Riverside County. November 1942. Salt Lake City, Utah. Woman training to operate buses and taxicabs. August 1942. Fort Belvoir, Virginia. Soldier using a barbed wire anchor spike to screw in a picket. He is wearing special gloves that are made for handling barbed wire. Circa 1954. Actress Betty White on the set of her local Los Angeles daytime television show. Washington, D.C. or vicinity, 1925. Alleyway. Who can identify the church? December 29, 1953. New York City views. Times Square at night. Let's meet at the brass rail. April 1955. Entertainers Jackie Gleason and Art Carney, in costume, posed as their honeymooners characters Ralph Cramden and Ed Norton. Circa 1905. Wood Street, Pittsburgh, PA. Home to Henan shoes. New Zealand circa 1910. Young men in formal wear at table ready to have a meal, next to tent lily at campsite, probably in Sumner, Christchurch. Washington, D.C., 1924. National American Ballet. You can't get much avant-garde than this. August 1937. Former bank, now a saloon. Mizpah, Minnesota. June 1942. Washington, D.C. U.S. Office of Defense Transportation System of Port Control and its Traffic Channel Control. Bonus photo for you, a beautiful retro woman. Charming girl in wedlock, vintage 1960s. Actress Becky LeBeau, 1988. Donna D'Errico, star of the TV series Baywatch. Photo 1989. From the early 20th century, somewhere in the Northeast, comes this 4x5-inch glass negative with the caption, LK Bicycles at Spring. New York circa 1912. The big buildings of Lower Manhattan. Wyoming baseball is all it says on this 4x5 negative, from the same batch of glass plates as these college lads. San Francisco circa 1925. Cunningham Auto and Chorus Girls. A little of everything going on here: vaudeville, car trouble, assault. December 4th, 1937. Washington, D.C. Correct way to bake turkey. H.E. McClure, of the Bureau of Husbandry, tests the turkey meat for odor. November 26, 1929. Thanksgiving turkeys for the President. Washington, D.C. Thanksgiving 1919. Once this chilly-looking fellow is properly dressed and warmed up in the kitchen, he'll have an honored place at the family table. Circa 1922 in San Francisco. This aging Chalmers touring car needs a new shoe. Since we're at the Maxwell Chalmers dealer, why not take a look at the new models? December 1934. No elephant toys for First Lady. Mrs. Roosevelt, on a Christmas shopping tour, had a hard time convincing Santa Claus that she did not want a toy elephant, a symbol of the Republican Party, as a Christmas present. From around 1910 comes this 5x7 glass negative showing a rail car fitted with what? Scranton, Pennsylvania, circa 1901. Board of Trade and Linden Street. Completed in 1896. Circa 1945. The Future Life magazine photographer Tony Link and two close associates. I purchased this 8x10 photo at a swap meet. On the back it says, L.R. Wally Miles, Jackie Regard, Francis Willems. San Francisco circa 1922. Army car with carriage-mounted searchlight. A military-grade Cadillac at the Presidio next to an aircraft hangar. Six exposed plates at Father Glasser's camp on Sunday, October 12, 1902. The only plate remaining in the original box of 12. This would seem to show a mission or church camp south of the border. Circa 1920. Set pieces, Arlington Hotel, including a polar pastry snowball iced with cookery 1909. Washington, D.C., 1919. Red Cross Vocational Education, Dietetic, Morse School. San Francisco circa 1925. Film star Mae Murray and Wessenberg Auto. (1927). New York City views Long Beach, with more than a few examples of street clothes in the sand. San Francisco circa 1930s. Locomobile 90 Victoria sedan. With a factory price of $7,300, this giant Series 90 Victoria came at the end of the road for the revered Locomobile brand. Loler GWU 1920. Johnny Loler, formerly of Tech High, now a Hatchetite's gridiron star. April 1942. Drummer Red Saunders and his band at the Club de Lisa, Chicago. From circa 1910 somewhere in the Northeast comes this 5 by 7-inch glass negative labeled Cooks and Kitchen. San Francisco or thereabouts circa 1919. Chalmers touring car. At what seems to be a deluxe cow barn. August 27, 1935. Congressional pages Mr. Sandman. Fred Johnson of Wyoming and Howard Osman of the District of Columbia. Congressional pages. Photographed as they snatched a bit of shut-eye while the House and Senate brought the session to an ignominious adjournment. Circa 1905. Launching of the Detroit Yacht Club. Madonna Louise Ciccone, American singer-songwriter, 1979. San Francisco circa 1923. Buick touring car at Victor's Dog. San Francisco, 1934. Fisk Service Garage. So, mister, you say it pulls to the right? Merry Christmas from the family. Actor Chuck Connors, his wife Betty and their sons Jeffrey, Stephen, Michael and Kevin circa 1960 at their home in Los Angeles. March 22, 1941. Pontiac and Mount Davidson Park, San Francisco. So if a tree falls on a convertible in the woods. (1924) Ario Taxicab, San Francisco. Why Uber when you can Rover? January 1943. Freight operations on the Chicago Northwestern between Chicago and Clinton, Iowa. The crew, with exception of the firemen, chat while waiting for orders to pull out. Washington, D.C., circa 1935. Children playing. with a cameo appearance by our old friend Turnbuckle Star. Graham Page Sedan, San Francisco. It's a beautiful sunny day in 1929. What could go wrong? Mill Valley, California, circa 1925. Nash touring car with trailer, outfitted with a patriotic profusion of flags. (1909) Midwinter Carnival, children's parade with dogs sled. Upper Saranac Lake, New York. August 1941. Stockmen on street corner outside Bar the Mint, Sheridan, Wyoming. October 1919. California Highway Motor Train in San Francisco. A publicity stunt showcasing the nascent field of long-distance trucking as facilitated by the giant pneumatic tire. February 21, 1924. Washington, D.C. McLeod robbed. M. Clancy. So what's going on here? Blue Earth Skating Pond, January 6, 52. This slide by Hubert Tuttle opens the winter edition of Minnesota Kodachromes. Hot chocolate, anyone? San Mateo County, California, 1924. Daly City Deputy Health Officer and construction trucks. Also the quarters of the constable, not to mention oil and greasing. Taken near Pikes Peak, Colorado, my great-grandfather's brother, George W. Downing, poses with his wife, family, and one great automobile. New Orleans circa 1880s to 1890s. Street in the French Quarter. San Francisco, 1924. Flint Roadster at golf course. Detroit, CA 1903. Children's Playground, Belle Isle Park. Please note, children only. Bonus photo for you, a beautiful retro woman. Donna Edmondson is a charming American model and actress, 1989.